On today's episode of All Chiefed Up, Saints Insider projects wide receiver Michael Thomas to be cut and land with the Chiefs. Move over Carson Wentz, a former Heisman winner, is now projected as Kansas City's backup quarterback. We got more D-Hop trade talk and combine news, so stick around.
What's happening, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to All Chiefed Up. It looks like a Saints Insider has said that Michael Thomas is going to get cut and will land with the Kansas City Chiefs. Mike, what do you think about that?
Michael Thomas, I kind of like him. I kind of don't. The reason I don't like him is injuries. Since 2019, this cat has stayed injured all the time. Like there's something to do with his leg, his ankle. I don't remember what it is specifically, but he does have a lot of injuries. They look like they want to cut him because Nick Underhill from New Orleans Football, he is a Saints insider. He said that he is due a $31 million roster bonus. And if he can play 4 games in 2023 with the Saints, they will owe him another $30 million. So they could potentially have to pay Michael Thomas $60 million to just play in 4 games this year. So I think they're about ready to cut ties with the wide receiver. He is impactful, and Nick Underhill does think that the perfect landing spot is the Chiefs because he says that Brett Veach has reached out talking about Michael Thomas with the Saints before. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, I mean, Michael Thomas was amazing when he was healthy and playing. And to think back to that, if he could get back to his former glory with Patrick Mahomes, that'd be a nasty combo. But the chances of that, to me, are pretty slim. But you'd have to be ignorant to be the Saints and go ahead and keep him, knowing that he has that money coming to him. I feel like that's just a bad idea for them. So is he going to go on the free agent market? For sure. But I don't know if the Chiefs are going to be the landing spot because a lot of people are still saying that the Chiefs are the landing spot for DeAndre Hopkins, who's also a hot trade commodity right now. So what do you think about that, Mike? Do you think that D-Hop or Michael Thomas would be a better option for the Chiefs if they were to go that route of trying to get a high-paid wide receiver?
Right. I still do not believe that Hopkins is a possible landing spot for the Chiefs. I just don't see it. He's going to want too much money. His age is kind of a factor. Again, Michael Thomas is not the youngest guy in the world. I don't know. I don't know if he fits our system better. I don't know how to explain this, but for some reason, I feel like Thomas could be more of somewhere we go. If you look at Thomas's stats, he has 526 receptions, 6,100 yards, and 35 touchdowns in his career. Again, the injuries are the big thing. So maybe Hopkins is the guy you would want if you wanted more reliability. But at the same time, Hopkins has a lot of injuries. Hopkins has also just served a 6-game PED suspension. So I don't think either one of these guys, for what you'd have to pay him, is going to be on the field and be valuable enough for us to spend all that money for.
No, we already talked about how DeAndre Hopkins wants 3 years for $70 million with whatever team he lands. We're not going to pay that much. We didn't pay Tyreek Hill that much money. We are not going to pay DeAndre Hopkins that much money at 30 years old? It's just not going to happen. And my thing about it is, I think Michael Thomas, I don't know if he'd be a better option than DeAndre Hopkins, but he's definitely going to be the cheaper option in my opinion because he's coming off all those injuries. He doesn't really have a leg to stand on, no pun intended. But DeAndre Hopkins is just asking for too much. I think he's an older guy. He's going to be in the decline soon. So I don't know. I don't like either of these options for the Chiefs, to be quite honest about it. I don't think they need to look for a wide receiver, especially in free agency, somebody that they got to spend way too much money for.
Look, Hopkins has doubled Michael Thomas's stats in his career. Hopkins has over 11,000 receiving yards and 71 touchdowns. Thomas is very valuable when he's on the field. Problem is, I just don't see him being on the field for long term, and I don't see us giving up the money for DeAndre Hopkins. I think both of these options are just not the way the Chiefs are going to go. I think we're going to still rely on youth. We may look to draft somebody else, and if they can get a younger guy in free agency, come on, guys. We're forgetting about Juju here. Juju looked good this year. You probably want to pay Juju before you go out and trade and pay some of these bigger guys with these bigger contracts. I think Juju actually fits in Kansas City, and I think Patrick Mahomes liked him.
So the Atlanta Falcons cut Marcus Mariota, and the hot topic lately has been that Wentz is probably going to come to the Kansas City Chiefs to back up Patrick Mahomes. But now some people are leaning towards Marcus Mariota instead, Mike.
Yeah. So Vegas come out and said that Wentz, the Chiefs were the overall landing spot. I still don't see that. I see a team like maybe the Panthers looking at Carson Wentz or somebody like that. I really do not see him coming to the Chiefs and just saying, look, I'm a backup now. Because if you come to the Chiefs, you're strictly a backup. I think Carson Wentz still thinks he can be a starter in this league, so I just don't see it. I think Mariota is more of a possibility. Let's be honest. I think he'd come at a cheaper price, and I think he's got more of a Jordan Teamu, the guy that we kept bringing in to camp and do some different things with our practice squad. He kind of has a Shane Buechele vibe to him a little bit. I do believe Mariota probably fits us a little better than Carson Wentz. If you look at Mariota, he's played in 87 games. He has a 63% completion percentage, about 16,000 passing yards, 92 touchdowns. He's got a lot of picks to go with that. He is a threat with his legs. I don't know if I love either one of them. I kind of think Shane Buechele does it for a cheaper, but at the same time, I do think that if anybody could resurrect a career, it's Andy Reid, and he may be able to get something out of Mariota. Mariota was a Heisman winner. He was projected to do good things in the NFL, and I just feel like he's never been in a good spot.
You kind of hit the nail on the head for me, though. If anybody can resurrect a career, it's Andy Reid. And you have to remember, Carson Wentz was highly touted when he came out of the draft, and he was also an MVP candidate in the NFL at one point before he kind of fell off the wagon. So I felt like that would be a really solid backup for the Chiefs, but you would have to pay him a lot more than you would probably want to pay a backup quarterback. I kind of think they're leaning towards just going ahead and promoting Shane Buechele to that position. They probably won't sign either of these guys, in my opinion, but they seem to be the landing spot for a lot of experts. So we're going to hear about it a lot. I'm sure you all have read it everywhere. So what do you think? Get in the comments and let us know if you'd rather have Marcus Mariota or Carson Wentz as a backup for Patrick Mahomes.
So the NFL Combine's kicked off here in Indianapolis, Steve. The guys took the podium yesterday. Andy Reid, Brett Veach, they both come up. They were asked about Frank Clark. Frank Clark's due like 20-some million dollars. So it looked like we thought we were all going to have to cut him, whatever. Andy Reid absolutely loves Frank Clark, by the way. He said he wants to keep him. Brett Veach actually said he has a good relationship with Frank and his agent. They both hinted at the fact that if they could get something worked out for a year or two, they would much rather have Frank Clark on the roster than cut him. What do you think about that, Steve? Because I totally agree.
I'm all Frank Clark now, man. We all know that I was never a huge fan of Frank Clark in the past, especially personally. Always seemed kind of iffy to me, but it looks like he's turned around completely this last season, man. His attitude changed, his work ethic changed. He was out there doing his best to help George Karlaftis out. He made a really good relationship with the head coach Andy Reid after the passing of his father. We all heard about that in his post-game interview from the Super Bowl. And man, if you just saw the emotion that come out of Frank Clark right after the Super Bowl win, you know that he wants to win. This is what he wants to do. And I think that's a key piece of keeping this dynasty going, is having somebody like Frank Clark that has all of that experience and is just an extreme game wrecker come playoff time.
Yeah, I think Frank Clark has a little bit more in the tank. He is getting ready to be 30 years old. He's going to be 30 by the time next season kicks off. He'll almost be 31 by the time the season ends. It's going to be right there at the end if we make another Super Bowl run, when we make another Super Bowl run. But yeah, I do believe Frank Clark's got enough in the tank for another 1 year, 2 years. He was big in helping develop George Karlaftis. I thought that was him taking a step forward. I think our defensive line has a pretty good cohesiveness to it. I probably wouldn't even be opposed to signing Dunlap for another 1 year deal if he wanted to come back. I thought Dunlap looked good at certain times. I do think that we're going to look to the draft. Speaking of the draft, Steve, the combine, we have interviewed a couple guys today, both defenders. We interviewed Derek Hall, defensive end out of Auburn. He is a senior. He played 4 years at Auburn. And we interviewed defensive tackle Keanu Benton from Wisconsin. Steve, what do you think about that?
It's obvious that they still want help on the defensive side of the ball, and it looks like they're kind of moving from the secondary up to that front line there. So edge rusher is definitely going to be where all Chiefs Kingdom wants them to go in the draft. That seems to be the consensus for last year, and I think it's going to stick around this year. We need edge rushers. I just did a short on Derek Hall, actually. You guys can check that out right here up top. Click that and watch it. Let me know what you think about him in the comments. But Derek Hall, to me, he looks like a Spags-type defensive end. If you watch his game tape, he's just super persistent. He's long, he's strong, and he can get to the quarterback, man. And he looks like somebody Spags would like to have in his defense.
Right. Derek Hall, 6'3", 251 pounds. He played in 4 seasons in the SEC at Auburn, so he's playing some big guys. Let me give you a little bit of his stats. In 4 years, 99 solo tackles, 146 total tackles, 29.5 tackles for loss, 19.5 sacks, 1 interception, and 5 forced fumbles. That guy can get after it. He's a game changer. He's a wrecker. If he lasts to the end of the first round, I do see the Chiefs maybe pulling the trigger on somebody like him because, again, that's a perfect compliment. He's more of the speed guy compared to what they got with George Karlaftis last year, who was more of the bull rush guy in the middle. But I think this is a good thing. He's going to initially come in and be able to rotate. I think that's all we need. And I'm with all the Chiefs Kingdom here. If Brett Veach goes into the draft and drafts 3, 4, 5 defensive players, be it interior or on the edge, I'm going to be completely pumped with it because it looks like the project with Kando and stuff is just not working out.
Right. And I know we need some help on the defensive end side. We talked about that all last year, maybe signing somebody in free agency and stuff like that to give Chris Jones some help in the middle. They ended up getting Brandon Williams. I think they had Danny Shelton. They ended up on the practice squad. Turk Wharton was hurt all year. There wasn't a lot going on there. Derek Nottie, I don't see him being a Chief much longer. Colin Saunders, he had a great year, but he's a free agent. We don't know if he'll be back as a Chief or not. So looking inside at those guys in the draft would not be a surprise to me. And Keanu Benton, he looks like a pretty good target, to be honest. He had 36 total tackles his senior season, 4.5 sacks, and 2 passes defended. So he can be a game changer on the inside. And I think that under the wing of Chris Jones and the rest of the guys on the defensive line, he could definitely be an asset.
Yeah, I think that's a name they're going to look at. There's a lot of defensive tackles in this draft that I think they could potentially look at. I think the biggest thing for us is going to be getting Turk Wharton back healthy. I think Turk Wharton was starting to come into his own. Him and Chris Jones was starting to be a beast on the inside there. And I mean, that's a good duo. If we can get Turk Wharton back from his injury healthy, I think that's a big step in the right direction. And then drafting a few complementary pieces might be something that Brett Veach looks to do. It probably is something he looks to do. Colin Saunders, I think Colin Saunders, if they offer him a contract, I think he's earned it. He's done a decent job.
So on a previous video, we covered Alex Smith coming to the Chiefs as a quarterback coach. It was a false story that had been spread around on social media. Everyone was sharing it, so we felt the need to cover it. I threw out 2 names to you guys during that episode, and we were talking about one being David Girardi, who was a pass analyst, and also the assistant quarterback coach. He is actually who the Chiefs have chosen to hire for that position, Mike. So we were pretty spot on about that one. One other good thing going on, it's Pop's birthday today. Little Poppy. I don't know how old he is, but happy birthday, Pacheco. Have another celebration. You're a Super Bowl champion on your birthday.
Pop, have a day, boy. Have a day. Go have breakfast in Kansas at your favorite little spot. I forget the name of it. Go have yourself a breakfast. Have yourself a day, young man. Have yourself a day because you had yourself a season. Yesterday was Tyreek Hill's birthday, Steve. Happy birthday, Tyreek, I guess. No hard feelings.
Happy birthday, Cheetah. So Cole over on the channel, How About Those Chiefs, actually talked more about Carson Wentz coming to back up Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. You can watch that video right now. Make sure to get in our comments, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And we'll be back next week with much more on your Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Get into our shorts. We're releasing shorts on the top 150 draft prospects. So learn up on those guys, educate yourself, and put who you want in the comments. Have a good one.
Go Chiefs. We'll see you guys next week.